Welcome back. As we continue to go through the 14 defining characteristics of fascism, yesterday we looked at identification of enemies, scapegoats as a unifying cause. We've already talked about disdain of the recognition of human rights and powerful and continuing nationalism. Today we're going to be talking about supremacy of the military. Even when they are widespread domestic problems, the military is given a disproportionate amount of government funding, and the domestic agenda is neglected. Soldiers in military service are glamorized in a fascist society, which, I mean, do we even need a show for this, guys?
Wait, do you think people glamorize our soldiers?
Well, if you live in a country and you believe in your country, and whether that's justified or not, that's a different conversation. But say you live in a country and you believe in your country, it's understandable to respect your veterans and respect your people in your military who are out there doing a job for the government that you feel is just. But that doesn't mean worship them. They're not gods. They're still human beings. Be grateful. Give them a pat on the back. Buy one a drink when you see them. Cool.
Can I ask why?
I'm saying if you obviously, Tim, you have no faith in this country, but some people do, and so to them, the military is doing an essential function. That's all I'm saying. For people who think that. But I mean this absolute worship of the military. I mean, good God, it's bad when I considered going into the military because I figured I'd have an easier chance getting laid because they get treated like gods. Like that was a college thought of mine.
Do you think that's a reason a lot of people get into the military? Because I never thought of that.
No.
Olive, sorry.
I don't think a lot of people do, but again, that was a frat boy thought I had. Dude, I should be a soldier.
Many others get in because it's their only way to go to college as well. You have to understand that the military recruitment, a lot in 90% of the cases are always in working class towns and poverty-stricken towns. Promising them the GI Bill, promising them that they'll be able to make something of themselves after they do their military service. And that's something we need not forget, that it's used in that sense, as that, and then of course they're indoctrinated into it once they go to basic training and so on. But it's quite rare anymore, not in the past, but anymore, for people to go in for any other reason. Like I said, the last number I saw within the last 5 years is about 85 to 90% go in just so they can get a college education.
Yeah, that started after the draft, I think.
Yes. And that's what we have to understand here, is we have to understand history in this situation. This is not the way. We have not always worshipped our military. We did worship our military during World War II. But when it came to Vietnam, we did not worship our military, and veterans were treated horribly when they came back. They were spit on, they were beat, they were kicked, and even worse, sometimes lynched, just for doing something that they had no choice in doing. They were drafted. Of course, they could have went to jail, so they did have that choice. But they were drafted into that war. They did not necessarily all want to go. Also, there were plenty that did want to go, don't get me wrong. But this was during the draft, and these individuals were just treated very horribly when they came back, which is what then led us to the socialization agent of worship. It shouldn't have got as far as it did with worship, but respecting the military was the idea that then turned to worship as through time, and that's ultimately how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, you and I both kind of predicted the draft will be coming back.
Oh, absolutely.
Last show, I think. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. I'm just saying, that's you totally hit the distinction I was trying to make. Respect for the military. If you believe in your country and if you believe in what they do, respect for the military, and then worship of the military. They are definitely two different things, and Americans, I notice, are being conditioned to not really know the difference between the two, and a lot of it has to do with television and with pop culture. I have so many more movies about soldiers coming out, and I might be the odd wheel out here by saying this, but I study a martial tradition. I think soldiers are kind of cool, and I love these movies, these military movies, and some of them they're just like, my God, it's cool, but there's so much of it, and when you have this much of it, most people don't think for themselves. They go to work and then they come home and they watch TV and they just kind of like, because they're not thinking for themselves, the TV kind of does it for them, and if you want to know what's going on in a society, just watch their programs and it'll pretty much tell you. And they're glamorizing the military, and I notice, with the exception of this show Scorpion, which is pretty awesome, they're really downplaying people who use their brain for a career. They're really downplaying scientists and that sort of thing. Now we've got a TV series coming about the Navy SEALs. The Navy SEALs weren't ever even supposed to be talked about. They weren't supposed to be putting out books. They weren't supposed to be putting out movies. But at some point, the government figured out, hey, if we let them do this, people are going to worship the military more. So let's let them.
Yeah, I think every time I talk, she starts barking. Sorry. Stop it. I think if you look to the like even in the past, everyone with a gun was looked at as a hero, from cowboys to cops to soldiers. In this country, that's what they do. People with guns are heroes, and like even to the point of the films and television shows, I believe it's still like this. I know it was a while back that if they show the military in a good light, they can get funding from the military, and they can also get props like tanks or whatever they need like that as well.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That was
all propaganda.
Because that movie Independence Day didn't really get any cooperation from the military because they were talking about Area 51, and they were like, no, Area 51 doesn't exist. We don't want you talking about it, so we're not going to help you. When they came with the movie, they were like, yeah, that's great, But then when they said Area 51, they were like, no, we're not giving you any money. The military controls Hollywood to an extent that way.
I think Zero Dark 30 had some problems as well, and that the military wouldn't help them whatsoever because of what they were talking about, which they were just... Zero Dark 30 was the one showing how they, quote-unquote, got Osama bin Laden. But I know they had a lot of problems with the military.
Yeah, I think it's probably some public relations type office that deals with the different film companies, and they determine if it's going to show the military in the light they want it to be seen in or not. And then if it's deserving of the funding or props or whatever. It's not like you can't go get props and stuff if you have a big budget for a movie either way. I'm just saying that saves them some money that they could kick back to their actors or whoever else or say they saved it or whatever benefits them most, I guess. But in the end, all it's doing is promoting the military in the way the military wants to be seen, so people could keep looking at these soldiers as heroes. And right. I don't think, people invading other countries and slaughtering people is heroic. A lot of people disagree. I mean, I tweeted a week or two ago, like an open call, like if any of you patriotic Americans could tell me, beside genocide and slavery, what the hell you're so proud about of this country. And eventually somebody came back with, well, World War I, World War II, tons of inventions by Americans. So I went back and I said inventions weren't. I said, so all you really have is war, killing and death. I said inventions are invented by people, not countries. And I said, and so you're saying you're proud of being the only person to drop. You're proud of being the only country to drop the only atomic bombs ever. I didn't put an S by accident, bomb, so the only thing they can come back was what? It was 2 bombs. We bombed, you know what I mean? Like, you idiot. So it just went to stupid things because I forgot the S, and then it fizzled out. But I mean, that's how people think. They're proud of war. They're proud of killing. So if that's the case, then the heroes are the killers, right?
It's the way it's always been here. We live in a culture of violence. I mean, our country has been at war for every single year since its inception, or I should say since it's been stolen from the natives, but since 1776, every single year but 17. We live in a culture of war. We live in a culture of violence. That's why we have more violence in our country than any other industrialized nation. We're more focused on it. We're desensitized to it. Even though our crime rates are at historic lows, or at least as of last year they were, it still doesn't matter. We're still so much more than anybody even close to us in the industrialized world. And that's because we idolize violence. We idolize war. We're socialized. Look at the cartoons that we show our children. Look at the Disney movie Pocahontas. I could do all Disney movies, and I'm not going to. But you can just look at even the TV shows and the movies that we indoctrinate our children with. And see the racism and the violence and the sexism. All of it is there. And everybody thinks, oh, well, that's just normal. They're kids. They won't get it. But they do. That's the point. That's how they are socialized. That's how they learn, is from those things. And then we continue to allow it. So, yeah, that whole idea of cowboys versus Indians or cops versus robbers, you know, it puts in that kind of us versus them mentality, and it glorifies that violence.
Yeah, I mean, we shield our kids. We block all the TVs. We block everything online so they can't see a naked person, because that would be horrifying. And then we buy them a toy gun and some toy soldiers to play with, and let them watch all kinds of killing. It's really insane.
It is. Our obsession with violence is, and this is coming from a guy who practices samurai martial arts. You know, I meditate on violence daily. And I swear to God, America as a whole thinks about violence even more than I do.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, you're fed violence pretty much from birth in this society. Even years ago, I mean, like I said, while other countries filter out violence, we filter out nudity and sexual content. They filter out violent content. Because, I mean, if you're watching that stuff, that, like Gail said, it desensitizes you, especially if you're watching it simulated on television from the time you're a little kid, nonstop.
It definitely sends a message as the programming compounds that to kids that our society values violence more than connection. You know, our society values committing violence against people than it does connecting with people. You know, and our politicians may get up on their soapboxes and preach as though it's otherwise, and our pastors might and whatever, you know, but the fact of the matter is, you know, that's the message we are sending out to our children constantly. We're barraging them with it. You know, next to all-out consumerism and spend and get your parents to buy this, that's the thing we're feeding them.
Yeah, definitely. It's sickening, and it all leads up to worship of soldiers and back to patriotism again. I guess it's all kind of related. These different things we've been going over each episode. They're all kind of connected in somehow. Because I'm looking at some of the future ones, and we've already kind of touched on them, and then I'm looking at some in the past that we're touching on now. It's a trippy thing. But yeah, does anyone else have anything else on the supremacy of the military before we end this show?
Nope, that's all I have on that one.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for listening. We'll be back tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll be talking about rampant sexism and see how that pertains to the United States. See you tomorrow.